Welcome to the Germinate podcast, where agriculture, business, and innovation take root and thrive. I'm Joe Sampson, and with nearly 2 decades of experience in agricultural equipment and scaling businesses, I'm here to bring you actionable insights, inspiring stories, and strategic advice. Whether you're an industry veteran or just starting out, this podcast is your guide to cultivating ideas, expanding your knowledge, and growing your venture. So let's get started and germinate your path to success. This episode is brought to you by Haven Steel, one of the newest supporters we have here on the Germinate podcast, and we couldn't be more grateful to have them on board. They are specialty heat treaters who've mastered the art of steel form products built to last longer and deliver the kind of durability manufacturers depend on. They support businesses throughout the globe with American-made reliability, but really here's what I appreciate the most about Haven. They're genuinely great people first. Owner Ken Brown and his team carry a purpose and a drive that's rare in today's business world. They don't just work hard on their 2 plants in Haven, Kansas and McKinsey, Tennessee. They care. They put their customers first, they show up when it matters, and they stand behind every product they manufacture. So if you manufacture agricultural equipment or distribute heat-treated components, Haven Steel is the only name you need to call. And I'll say this, Haven Steel is up to something special. They are investing, expanding, and stepping into a new chapter that's going to get this industry's attention. So stay tuned, everyone. Keep your eye on Haven Steel and learn more at havensteel.com, havensteel.com. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Germinate podcast. Let's see, we're recording this one on the 14th of January. So we're kicking off into 2026 here. It's hard to believe. It's going by fast, but then again, it feels like Christmas was like 3 months ago already for me anyway. I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the ride with us yet again. Let's get some sponsors out of the way. Also, I want to say that we do have some kind of new sponsors that are really looking to get with us this season. I should say this year. Those sponsorships are limited. So, let me know if you're interested or let us know. Go to embosales.com, click on podcast, and you'll find our podcast and how to get involved and how to help sponsor it. We really appreciate the sponsors. We'll feature those throughout the show. But quick shout out to the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association, FEMA, not that FEMA, the other FEMA, FEMA, FEMAequip.org, or excuse me, farmequip.org. Is the website for them. Lots of exciting stuff going on with FEMA. In fact, our guest and I today are going to talk a little bit about that. So check those guys out. Also check out Megrotech out of Dublin, Ireland. Those guys are really, it's all about making things more efficient. And we're going to talk more about that today with Chris. But Megrotech is making sprayers more efficient and really just looking to utilize how to use the water inside of a sprayer more efficiently, much less drift, way better coverage. Megrotech website for them is megrotech.com, magrowtec.com. So check those guys out as well. And then Haven, GBGI, and some of the other ones will feature throughout the show. So really appreciate all those sponsors for coming along the ride with the Germinate podcast. Hard to believe. Okay, on to our guest. So I'm trying to think when you and I met, Chris. It's probably, I should have known you. I feel like I should have known you like 20 years ago, but and I feel like we have known each other for 20 years, but we haven't. It's only been a little bit of a while here, but you're a longtime FEMA guy. And you're one of those guys that once you meet, you feel like you've known for a long time. And we've just instantly connected on what the future of our industry looks like. And I say our industry, I say kind of the ag equipment, agriculture, agribusiness, ag tech, all those things. We're going to unpack all that today. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Chris Hunsaker to the show. Chris, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Okay, for those that don't know you, so a lot of people are going to know you, but that don't know you, don't know your company. Tell us about you, your business. Give us a little introduction here.
Sure. So I grew up on a farm in southern Idaho, sugar beets and wheat, and then professionally have spent most of my career inside the ag industry with the exception of a couple of years where I was working in accounting and finance in non-ag related businesses. But um, spent about 18 years at FEMA member, Double L, manufacturer of potato harvesting and handling equipment. And the combination of my background growing up on the farm, my educational background, things that I was interested in there, and then getting involved with a manufacturing business ultimately led me to where I'm at today, which is a tech startup called Acuitas Ag. We're primarily a software business, but focused on solving some of the issues that farms have managing their operations and the data flows around that. And it comes all the way back full circle to the machines themselves and trying to use technology appropriately in the machines to drive innovation forward there. So um, a couple of I would say defining moments I think that have influenced how I arrived at where I'm at today. There was a time when I was in college that I was home for the summer, and I was with my dad in his pickup, and there was a thunderstorm coming, and we could see it, and it was obvious that it was going to be a problem. And we had several thousand acres of wheat that were ripe that we were in the process of harvesting. And when the thunderstorm hit, it was 10 minutes and it was over, but there was over 1,000 acres of ripe wheat
Oh,
that
wow.
was hailed on, and there was nothing that we could do. And so, it was a very a poignant memory. And, watching my dad just kind of go, well, uh, yeah, can't do anything about
Throw
it.
your hands up in the air and go, okay, nothing I can
Yeah.
do, right? Mother Nature.
Yep. So, that I mean, the challenge that the farmer faces being having so much at risk and only having so much that they can control. That was just something that stuck with me. So, as part of my education, I got a master's degree in accounting actually, but my degree, the school that I went to, my degree was pretty well rounded. So I had some operations management classes and I had finance and strategy and all these things. And it was all very interesting to me. So when I got involved at Double L, there were a number of things that we started to try to do, and one of them was we wanted to drive efficiency in our processes.
Mhm.
And we also wanted to create a little bit better connection to our end customer because we felt like that was lacking. Like we needed better feedback loop. And so we changed a lot of things. We changed production processes inside the business for manufacturing. We took a long, hard look at our distribution and how we were going about that. And anyway, as part of that, we got quite a bit closer to the farm than what a typical equipment manufacturer historically has been,
Mhm.
where we were selling direct and we were on the farm and we were getting that direct feedback. Well, in that process, we started to realize that some of our customers would come to us and want to buy a particular piece of equipment, and we were familiar with their operation, and we thought, "We don't know if you need that. We think you might actually need something else.
Oh,
Um, you
interesting.
know,
Okay.
your constraint in your process is different than what maybe you think it is." So we decided to try and help contextualize that for the customer. So, started out with just a fairly straightforward spreadsheet that would help them visualize what their capacity was, and most of this discussion was around harvest time. So, potatoes are notoriously challenging to handle, because they damage easy, they bruise, and then they don't store well, and they don't cook right, and so there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of equipment that's brought to bear, and but you're still dealing with very compressed timeframes, and
Sure.
um, so we started to do that, and that was great. And I think that it was enlightening for the customers to think about their processes maybe in a little different way. And there were some things that were exposed there, but what we really needed to be able to do is we needed to be able to um, show that to them in real time so that they could understand it as it was happening and make different decisions in the moment. So several years ago, it just occurred to me one day that yeah, technology's come to a point where we could probably create a system that would do this,
Mhm.
um, and at a price point that the farm would be willing to adopt that. And so we set out to do that, and within a couple of years, it was obvious that we needed to focus on that. So I left the machinery business and started Acuitas Ag. So that's kind of how we got to where we're at.
I gotcha. So walk me back to that story about you and your dad. You're in the pickup truck. You see a big giant storm coming, and are you saying it was just Mother Nature plays its role, and we need to be able to have a little bit more control, or what was the aha moment there? Maybe I missed that.
Well, it in the moment, it was just an emotional experience, but looking back on it, the idea was as well, the weed is ripe. We we should have had it harvested already.
I gotcha.
And,
I gotcha.
um, you know, anybody who's grown up on a farm will know that that's never perfect.
Sure.
But what it emphasizes in the case of trying to make sure that you can get the work done that needs to be done in the window that of opportunity that you have to do it, um, is driving efficiency in those processes is important. So if you look at the evolution of farm equipment, it's gotten bigger, it's gotten faster. The whole goal is to try and make the work happen as fast as possible when that window is open.
Yeah, the word efficiency, obviously. Yep.
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 Yep. So making every minute count is really what it comes down to. But historically, farms, the only lever they could pull there is to literally throw horsepower at the problem. And that's really expensive. So technology actually opens the door to maybe approach the problem from a different way and get more out of what you have rather than just trying to throw more
Yeah.
capacity at the problem.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's kinda yeah, I get it. Let's dive into a couple of things that I think will maybe spark you a little bit, and really the first one is, and I've told this story before, but I was at the Farm Progress Show in Illinois, and, there's a ton of technology all over the place. We're coming up on farm show season here as well, where I think the Iowa show is in the first week of February, a couple weeks from now. Commodity Classic, Louisville, National Machinery Show, all these big ag shows. Anyway, there's going to be a ton of technology there. There's also going to be a lot of equipment there that's really, really expensive. Most farmers can't afford this equipment because, the John Deeres and the AGCOs and the CNHs, they bring their fancy, shiny, cool objects. It's kind of like when I went to a toy store as a kid and I'd walk through the aisles and be like, "Oh, I want that sweet go-kart," or "Give me that automated truck," or, which I knew I'd never have. My old man was not the kinda guy that would buy that. But I wanted it. It was like a dream, and that's kinda what I'm seeing at these shows, but I'm also hearing things like, "Oh, you know what? The technology is too damn confusing for me, and I don't understand it, and I just want something simple." Um that perplexed me when I heard that. I was kinda like, "Man, we say things like that, but dude, what's this?" For those not seeing, I'm showing my cell phone. Everybody's got one, and we basically have this supercomputer at the palm of our hands, and without it, we couldn't function as a society anymore. That's, I guess, the first topic that I wanna bring up to you, Chris, and I don't know how you react to that. I know I've asked this to you before, but, yeah, go ahead. What's your thoughts there?
No, the cell phone example is the example that I've used when this comes up,
Yeah,
where, there are some perception things here, and I think the hesitancy on the farm side is if you get something that breaks down in the field and they view it, you make it more complicated, you add electronics to it.
sure.
There's a lot of history and experience that would tell the farm that you're taking more risk than you should, and if you just make it brain dead simple, and we had arguments about this all the time, like don't introduce some electronic control into this, make it mechanically driven so that,
Yep.
we understand how it works and we can fix it if it breaks.
Yep. Yep.
Um, I totally appreciate that. Um, and I think the unfortunate thing is in the past, they've had bad experiences with some of this technology, and it's made them a little bit leery
Sure.
of wanting to invite that in. But if it's done right, what it's enabling is more control, more efficiency, better output. Um, and that's on the suppliers of the technology to get that right.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And that bodes my second question. I can't remember who I was talking to. I was about ready to look him up, but maybe you know this guy. Sorry, I'm punting here. Company's called Egg Done Different. I'm promoting him here, not for we have no affiliation or partnership whatsoever, but Dan is his name, and super interesting guy, very well. Do you know him? Do you know Dan?
I don't know if I do.
Okay,
Um,
well, it's not that important, but his take was he's basically saying, and I've said this before too, we're in this spot in agriculture, especially the equipment side, and any farmer knows equipment side, technology side, whatever, agribusiness. We're coming off of COVID. It's this crazy era. Everybody's busy. And now we're in this cycle of what the heck are we going to do? Where are we at? How do I move this thing forward? I don't think farming is ever going to be, oh, this is his take, maybe mine too. He doesn't think farming's ever going to be the same. We're never going to see these higher commodity prices. I shouldn't, never is a strong word, but it's going to take a long time here. What farmers and what agribusinesses and what suppliers and what everybody needs to figure out and focus on is I got to be efficient. I got to be as efficient as possible. And I don't know. What's your take on the overall ag market? Do you feel like that's an accurate statement? Are we going to get back to $10 corn and $20 beans? And I mean,
that's hard. It's hard to
right.
know.
Never is a strong statement. I get that. But boy, there sure is a lot out there these days. And we got this emergent Brazilian and South American market that's we haven't really seen before. It's a new time.
I'm all for looking for ways to improve outcomes on the revenue side because that's more fun for everybody,
Of
right?
course. Of
But
course.
that's one of the challenges I think that farming has always faced is the farms have never, very rarely have they had pricing power. Um, and the whole structure of the industry works against them in that regard. And so, I was actually thinking about this last night in anticipation of our conversation. And we call crops commodities. And in the ag world, commodity means something different than it would in an economic sense. But
Yeah.
it's the economic definition that actually really needs to inform this discussion. And that's that if I'm selling wheat and it's wheat, and maybe there's some difference for quality or protein or whatever, but there's only so many things that I can do to differentiate my wheat from somebody else's wheat,
Sure.
and that's not likely to change much. So yeah, I think there are challenges there, and so, you look at, how can you help the farm to be profitable, year in and year out, regardless of some of those swings in prices, and efficiency is one of the main sources, and, um, it's not to say that ag machinery and the way that it's developed hasn't driven efficiency, it has.
Hmm.
I look at how fast you can plant a field of corn now versus what you could 35, 40 years ago, and it's a
Sure.
whole different ballgame. Um, but we're bumping up against some hard realities, on the machinery side. One is how expensive it is. Two, just physical size. How do you move it around?
Yeah.
Um, we're, more and more people are realizing that there are serious soil compaction problems because of the presence of these giant machines in the field and what they do to the soil. Um, there are a lot of challenges, and so as you look at maybe what could happen going forward, I think this is where autonomy gets pretty exciting because Labor is a challenge on the farm. Everybody knows it. It's getting harder and harder for farms to find any labor, let alone labor that's skilled enough to do the job as well as, the person that they're replacing that might
Yeah,
have some experience. It just
sure.
it's getting harder and harder all the time. So how can you address that? Well, autonomy or automation is a real opportunity to change the equation there. And if you remove the operator from the operation of the equipment, it allows the equipment makers to rethink what the machines are and how they work. And there's a lot of possibilities there, and I'm not going to pretend to know where that goes
Sure.
right now. But I can see that the technology has come along far enough that we're going to start to get answers to that. And maybe we're already getting them a little bit to a degree, but I would say we're early in that process. So,
Yeah. You've maybe coined I don't know if you coined this phrase, but I'm gonna give you credit for it. Feed the beast. It's similar to what you were just talking about of kind of the old school way to manufacture a product is to kind of just keep that beast fed, right? In any way you possibly can, whether it be labor, whether it be really it's kind of been labor or equipment, you're just kind of feeding it, keep it running. We got to have throughput, we got to have throughput. Uptime is the best thing ever. You're way more eloquent at speaking about this than me, but unpack your concept here of feeding the beast of maybe what manufacturing used to be and what it is, kind of needing to shift into here in the future.
yeah, um, manufacturing in particular, I think that all manufacturers, find themselves in this spot where you've made your investment in plant and equipment, and you've got a labor force there ready, and you need to be able to build stuff. And you can either build things that are already sold, or you can build inventory that you hope you can sell, but you have to right size what that production flow is to make it go. And when you turn the switch on, you want it to run and you want it to be efficient. You want to do all these things. So there was a book that I read years ago that really influenced my thinking on this. It's called The Goal. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book.
I haven't, but I'm writing it down.
The guy that wrote it, his name's Eli Goldratt. I think he may have passed away by now, but it was a book I had to read in school. And what he was trying to introduce in the book, which was written in novel form, kind of an interesting way to
Oh,
talk about a
nice.
technical subject.
Yeah,
But it made it super accessible. He was introducing the idea of the theory of constraints and talking about bottleneck management and all of these things. And there's lots of terms I think that are related to this that maybe are a little higher profile. Lean manufacturing is one, or lean thinking,
sure.
where you're always trying to optimize. Um, but but reading that book and thinking about the implications of trying to drive efficiency in a manufacturing process based off of this idea that your process at any given time has one bottleneck, and the bottleneck can move depending on what it is that you're processing, but there is always a constraint. And so all of your efforts should be on optimizing the constraint point, and the other things around it don't matter as much. Well, it 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 leads to a lot of logical conclusions that I think challenge the way that manufacturing has traditionally been done. So, batch processing is a big no-no in the theory of constraints for a whole bunch of reasons that we probably don't have time to get into here. But um,
Wait a minute, wait a minute. I wanna unpack that a little bit. You say batch
sure.
processing is a bad theory when it comes to constraints. Basically is what you said, right? Why do you say that?
Well, so a part of his thing was is you should be aligning your production to support the demand that is out there. And
Okay.
so if you're planning production to build, X widget and
A
build
a
100 of them in a
100
row,
an
but
hour. Yeah.
you can't sell those, but you could sell 50 of a different widget and 25 of a third widget. You should be doing what you can do to support that. And
Okay. I gotcha.
uh, that's a and there's a lot of things that that go into that. Demand is one. Another one is, if you have to make a change, a design change. So this is a pretty legitimate thing where a manufacturer naturally doesn't want to make a design change because they just built 50 of the thing and they don't want to rework it, or they
Sure.
don't.
Just buy the thing. Buy this over here. That's what we
Right.
made.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
want you
got
to
you.
buy the thing I've already
Yeah.
built. I don't want to
Right.
try and worry about building
Right.
the thing that you need.
Right.
And
Yeah, I get it.
so there's all these weird incentives that get built into this idea of wanting to feed the machine, feed the beast.
Feed the beast. Yeah.
And at least, and I'm just one guy. There's lots of opinions out there about this, but after 20 plus years, I still feel really strongly about this, that um, ag machinery, by and large, has not been super innovative over the years. I think there's been innovation at the margins, but uh, you know, a potato harvester is what a potato harvester was 35 years ago. It's just bigger and faster.
Right.
Um, you know, corn planter, you could say the same thing. And, the faster thing matters and the bigger thing matters, but there's nothing differentiating about it. It hasn't been rethought from the perspective of first principles, and nobody ever even gets to that spot in their design process analysis or whatever, because they're so worried about keeping the shop full.
I gotcha. I gotcha. It makes yeah, I love oh, and to your point, like there was a time in ag not that long ago where equipment was getting big. Like if we go bigger, we can just cover more ground. That was the theory. The problem is where's the end game in big? Well, you can't go so big, there's no tractor on planet Earth that can pull whatever it is behind. Or you can't have a tractor that's so big that it causes all sorts of other issues, or it costs $10 million to buy one and nobody can afford it. So then it shifted from big to fast. But the same kind of concept comes into play there. What's the end game with speed? Well, you're not going to be able to go 100 miles per hour through a field. I mean, there's limitations here to this. I think is kind of what your point is, right? There's limitations to speed, there's limitations to big, but there's not as many limitations to technology, innovation, that kind of thing. Is that kind of what you're thinking or what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm looking at the drive to make things bigger and faster was being driven by, it was being driven by the customer wanting to have a more efficient piece of equipment. But I think at its root, it was being driven by trying to amortize the cost of the machine and the operator over more acres,
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah.
and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's driven consolidation on farm, where your family farms are fading out, and they either become a larger operation or they get gobbled up by somebody else who isn't a larger operation, because they're constantly trying to optimize this cost of labor and equipment and
Mhm.
amortize it over more acres. And so um, it's not that it shouldn't be done, but with that operator being in the equation, there's only so much that you can there's only
There's
so much you can
limitations.
do.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, I
You
gotcha.
you remove the operator and all of the equations change again. And
Got it.
so, another thing that I think is just a pretty interesting thought, can be applied in a bunch of different ways, but in terms of uptime, this would apply in manufacturing. It also applies on the farm. If I have a piece of equipment that has a 90% uptime rating, so it's got a 10% probability of being offline,
Mhm.
um, that that's great. If I only have one of those, and I could have 10 machines that had the same capacity as the one machine, as well as the same probability or uptime capability. If one of my machines goes offline, I didn't lose 100% of my throughput. When it went offline, I only lost 10% of my throughput.
Sure.
So, but the reason we don't have 10 smaller machines that have the capacity of one big machine is we can't afford to have 10 operators. You remove the
Interesting.
operator, and now potentially that starts to change. Then, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, you duplicate powertrains and controls and all of these things in each of the 10 machines, but just removing the operator is gonna produce, some different outcomes there, and, my opinion is you're gonna start to see things get, smaller um, and give the farm a better ability to keep their throughput moving,
Yeah.
in the event of a breakdown or some other thing. So, because it makes them more flexible.
Yeah. So if you go back to, I mean, 100%. I mean, there's pros and cons to that. I think I want to get to that, but going back to your kind of I interrupted you when I was like, wait a minute, unpack batch manufacturing a little bit. So the theory is you've got 25 widgets. You've got 25 widgets of widget A that are sold and 50 of widget B that are sold. Instead of running 1,000 of widget A because it's good to feed the beast that way, it's maybe better. Let's run what we know we can sell and produce revenue for, right? That's kind of what you're unpacking. The way to do that now in most factories is super inefficient because of all the things you said, setups, die changes, whatever. I mean, whatever. You could reassemble a whole production line to make a different product. You never know. It depends on the manufacturing. Um, so there's some pushback there in the concept of feeding the beast. It's like, yeah, I want to do this. That would be great to get there someday. But I got to keep my factory full. I got to keep my lines going and we just need to hire more people and basically do the same old crap we've been doing for the last, to your point, 100 years or 50 years or whatever the case may be.
Yep. Yeah, and the interesting thing too is that the batch processing, you have inventory everywhere. So if you
Sure.
so here was another kinda aha moment for me. I think this was in 2004 or late 2003. So I'd already started at the manufacturing business and I was looking at our shop processes, pulling my hair out because in my mind, there was waste everywhere. Waste in terms of people looking for tools, looking for parts. The time that something spent in production from beginning to end was too long. And just all this mess and work in process was super high as a result. So inventory or work in process, you can think of it if you have a lake that's full of water, the water is the inventory. And what does it cover up? It covers up the lake bottom and the terrain and what it looks like. Well, all those peaks and valleys, that's where all of your inefficiencies are and you can just totally cover it up with inventory. So nobody even knows that there's anything amiss.
Right.
And and in operations, this is exactly what happens.
Yep.
So you have all of this cost tied up in the inventory, and in a manufacturing business that can be substantial, and it's not free. It's not free to carry that on your balance sheet. It causes all these other problems we've already talked about as of, well, I don't wanna make a change that might make it so I can sell more because I can change this feature, or I can
Yeah.
take this customer feedback, and I can be more responsive to it. I don't wanna do it because I have 100 of them in process, and I don't wanna rework them. You have that problem. But it's also covering up your lack of discipline in the management of your own processes.
Yeah. 100%. Hey, folks, let's pause the podcast for a second to talk about one of the companies making the Germinate podcast possible. Want to give a huge thanks to GBGI. Here's Mark Adams.
Thanks, Joe. At our shop in Chardon, Ohio, every part we build is made with precision. From the CNC machining to the final inspection, we don't rush because we know your customers can't afford failure. If you're a dealer or OEM who wants reliability built in, give us a look. GBGI, built to spec, built to last. Learn more at gbgiusa.com. GBGI, grow with us.
A exciting partner that we just brought on board. I don't partner with those that I don't believe in. And FEMA is a network that I've been a part of for almost 20 years, over 20 years, actually. And this episode is powered by the Farm Equipment Manufacturers Association. FEMA connects the entire ag equipment ecosystem, not just manufacturers and suppliers, but a wide range of partners who help this industry run, grow, and evolve. In today's world, building farm equipment takes a heck of a lot more than steel, tooling, and production lines. It takes the people and companies who support manufacturers and suppliers behind the scenes, the problem solvers, innovators, creators, integrators, service partners, all you strategic thinkers who help businesses operate smarter, communicate better, and push this industry forward. So whether you build equipment, support the people who build it, or you're a company that wants to plug into the industry in a meaningful way, FEMA is the network to do that. It opens doors. It's where relationships become opportunities, where collaboration creates momentum, and where the future of our industry is being shaped. So if you want to be part of FEMA, reach out to me or reach out to farmequip.org, FARMEQUIP.org, and connect with manufacturers and partners driving agriculture forward. FEMA, where the whole industry connects, grows, and moves together. www.farmequip.org.
I work with a lot of different businesses, and maybe this is anecdotal, but I doubt it. Not a one of them, when we've seen success for growth, not a one of them, it's like, well, we finally got the right sales guy. We've had the wrong salesperson and we finally got the right one. Or, we finally developed a marketing team that's untouchable. Or, we found out, now there could be some flaws in personnel. I'm not saying that, but the reality of it is, most growth is almost always going to come with changing the way you've done something in the past to make it more efficient in the future, to your point, so you can actually unveil this broader thing that, oh, wait a minute, we can actually sell more. We have way more capacity now to do this or chase that or go there. I think we get stuck in it's a people problem or it's a personnel problem. It's like, you can keep saying that. Good luck with that. Let's see where that ends up taking to you. The average tenure, I say this all the time, of most of these people is going down, 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 down. So you're just going to hire left and right for the rest of your life, and nothing's ever going to change. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
what your reaction is to that, but
No, it's true, and there's, so you start looking at how you can change things there, and there's a lot of possibilities. So when we were working on this, in 2003, I had an opportunity to go on a John Deere plant tour with my dad, who was still farming at that time, and he and a bunch of other growers went back and went through the 8 series tractor factory and went through the combine
okay.
factory and went through the air seeder factory. And I think it was the 8 series tractor factory. There was a section of that the ceiling was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 stories high, kind of in the middle of the shop floor. And it was all fenced off. And when we went through there, it was empty. And the guy who was taking us on the tour, he said, you may wonder what this is. He said, we used to bring the farmers here and show off how much inventory we had, because we had inventory stacked clear to the rafters of all the parts that we would take to put into their tractor, and that was all gone. What it was replaced by was holes that they'd cut in the walls of the factory for just-in-time delivery of parts, to where he said, now we talk about the inventory we have on the shop floor in terms of hours, not in terms of months.
Sure.
And, totally different approach to everything. And it was a huge eye-opener for me. I mean, these are not new concepts in larger scale
no.
manufacturing.
No.
Your car manufacturers, John Deere, the evidence was clear on this tour in 2003. They had converted
Yeah.
their way of thinking, and they were in the process of trying to make this better. And so I saw that. I saw at the air seeder plant where they had torn their whole shop apart and rearranged everything, and they had little manufacturing cells. So they, at any given time, they might have a bunch of fabrication equipment there that was idle. But it allowed them to respond at the drop of a hat to a change in product mix or whatever, And, they weren't buying brand new equipment to do this. They had something that was older, but it still fit the purpose and it gave them flexibility in production that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
So, um, a lot of interesting things to rethink how you would, make something go. And for us, it was super applicable because we had a really broad product line. We had over 30 models and we had variants of all of those models, and it was nearly impossible for us to predict what the product mix was going to be from a sales perspective. It was difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
And so being able to respond better to the actual demand that came up and also feel like we were going to the farm and selling them what they needed, not what we had sitting in a yard somewhere already built, felt like we needed to do that.
That's a good point, and that's kind of the world we live in today. It's like, "Oh, I really do I like it, but can you make a little tweak here or a little twist there, and then I really like it," and that there's pros and cons to that. But what's your take on going through COVID and the whole just-in-time lean was really growing, and almost every manufacturing company was getting involved with some sort of a 5S, Kaizen, some sort of a system that makes sense for them, and then COVID hits, and it's like all that went out the door. Everybody just talk about feeding the beast. I mean, it was a feed the beast moment for like what, 2 years, 2.5 years of just, and then all of a sudden the inventory, to your point, the water just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And I think that's probably still a mess. It's like when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. It's like, man, we're just coming up for air almost right now. We don't even know what needs to be rebuilt, repackaged up, what's gonna survive, what isn't. I mean, isn't that's basically what happened, right? In your view?
Yeah, and there were a lot of people that were critical of how supply chains had been remade when COVID first happened, and you started to have shortages of things, because such and such supplier can't ship because they had to send their workforce home because somebody tested positive or whatever.
Right, right, right.
Um, and there's definitely things to think through there. But I don't think it changes the overall it should change the overall approach to driving efficiency in the process because the cost still of the inventory all up and down the supply chain is really high. And you know, even to supply a surge in demand at a particular time, you can build buffer stock. That's part of theory of constraints that I think, if you have somebody that's just really focused on lean, they may want to eliminate those because they're trying to optimize the inventory levels too. And
Sure.
theory of constraints would say you optimize the inventory levels where you need to have inventory where you need it and not where you don't. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
um, little nuance there to how that is dealt with. But yeah, I mean, I'm really glad I was not in the manufacturing
Yeah, yeah.
world when COVID happened because that was a hard thing to deal with.
Well, it was like a lesson I think everybody just kind of, didn't really want, but needed to have, and now everybody needs to know what it is. What are we doing today and moving forward to be able to, I mean, I'm not sure something like that will ever happen again too, but once again, never say never. You never know. Will there be a massive surge in agriculture again? You never know. That said, it is all about the efficiencies and doing more with less and automation. And these are all these buzzwords now that everybody's thinking about. How do I get involved? How do I start? Where do I go? And it's a tough question, especially if you've been super old fashioned. If you're still doing your accounting on index cards, some companies are. I mean, some companies are doing that. You're not going to be around much longer if you are. What do you say to those businesses that are looking to say, "Wait a minute here. I know I've got to do something. I just don't. I'm so overwhelmed with the beast behind me. It's the only thing making me money, and I know I've gotta fix it in a massive way. This duct taping method I've been doing for the last 50 years, it ain't gonna work anymore. I've gotta do some permanent fixing." What do you say to those people that just need to find a way to start? Where do they start? What do they do?
Well, I think that is the key is you gotta pick a spot to start and where that starting point it will differ maybe from business to business depending on where you're at and what you're doing. But um, there's I think there are some mixed views about software in businesses like manufacturing, and I felt this way too. I've been through a couple of ERP system implementations, and I
Yep.
swore if I ever had to do another one at that scale, I'd just rather go lay in the freeway,
Yep.
put myself out of my misery
Nobody
because
likes
it's so
ERP systems. Yep. There's never a
so
good one.
painful.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, but that, I I I think that some of the things that are coming, some areas of focus can be, what data do I keep and what form do I keep it in?
Hmm.
And how are the emerging AI tools going to allow me to use that better to, manage my business, to manage my customers, to support my customers, right, whatever the case may be? Because there are a lot of applications there where, in the past, software would have been the thing that solved the problem, and going forward, it still will be, but the way that the tool is implemented will change dramatically because of the prevalence or the presence of AI. So, we think about interfacing with a browser window in our accounting software and running a report.
Sure.
And if the report's not in the software, we get super frustrated, and so then we have to export it and put it in Excel and build it
Yeah.
ourselves and all this
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Um, AI gives you the opportunity to skip over all of that if your data is structured in a way that the AI can process it. And then it might be that you walk up to your computer or you open your phone and you ask an agent there to tell you what you want to know, and it goes and pulls whatever it needs to or presents it. And if you say, well, okay, I like that, but I'd like to see it in this context, bam, I have
Bam.
a
It's
different
there.
report.
Yep.
And we're early in that, but being able to have data in a way that can be accessed and useful is super important. And so
Sure.
if somebody's keeping track of stuff on cards and storing it in boxes,
Yeah.
that's not obviously not going to be accessible by an AI. Um, but even inside of your internal systems, spreadsheets that are not well organized or not well understood are going to be problematic. Even software programs where the the structure and schema of the information that's being stored, if that's not well documented, somebody's going to have to document that in order for it to be as useful as it could be otherwise. So, those might be some things to think about.
Our ERP system, this just dawned on me, but our ERP systems, do you think going to be around much longer now that AI is here? Is there a need for an ERP system with what AI can do? You know what I mean? I mean, it might be called an ERP, but it's really not in the future. And maybe I'm blowing smoke here, but what's your thoughts?
No, I think it's a really good question, and I think a lot of people are looking at that because if you're capturing the transactional information in some fashion and storing it, the wrapper that goes around that serves the
Yep.
information up to you, that what we're saying is basically that's all going to change. And
Sure.
so I don't know whether you'll call it ERP or if you'll call it something else, might be, your own version of, um,
Chat
what's
GPT, Grok,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it is, that's probably gonna be the way that you interact with some of that stuff, and the generation of other parts of the information is gonna be automated.
Yeah. You're seeing that in big companies now. A lot of them, I don't know this, but I'm sure John Deere has their own version of a large language model. I know places like Syngenta and these giant companies are building that infrastructure in the back end, maybe for this very reason, to be able to just have that real time feedback that is It's just so important. I mean, we've been picking a lot on it. I mean, think about it in the terms of WIP image. We've been picking a lot on inventory today. But my gosh, it should be picked on. It's really, really expensive. And if you have way too much of it, well, that's a problem. And if you don't have enough of it, that's also a problem. So there's ways to utilize technology to make sure you have just enough of it. I mean, it sounds cheesy, but and all these big businesses are doing it. And so right? I mean, am I dreaming that or
No, I think that's real, and I think that the benefits from having that focus are a lot of times greater than what people think. So, and just in terms of how much waste can be eliminated or how much optimizing can be done. And
Uh-huh.
if you had to hire an army of people with notepads and stopwatches and whatever else to go and observe whatever has to be observed to drive the efficiency, you're not going to do it,
No.
obviously.
No.
But technology changes all that, and then that's kind of the whole point. And it's not it, the I don't I'm of the opinion that the potential revolution coming from AI can't be understated. Um,
I
is
agree.
it magic? No, but is it close to magic? It's gonna look like
And
it.
we're getting there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
think of how quick it's been too. Like we're talking about a year or so, maybe maybe a year and a half that all this stuff is really and think of what we do today versus I mean, I know the version of me today, for instance, can 10x the guy 2 years ago as far as workload capacity. I mean, it's not even close. And it's all because of efficiencies. It's all because of, you know, all the things that we take advantage of today that weren't really a thing. They weren't a
Yeah.
thing a year ago. What's it gonna be a year from today? I mean, you're right. We're talking close to magic type. It's weird, man. It's wild. It's wild what it will do.
Yeah, I because I'm not in this space every day now, I'm not super up to speed on where things currently sit, but I've thought a little bit about it just in my spare time because I think it's exciting. But you think about the way that you would design a piece of equipment in the past.
Yeah,
Um,
good point.
we went from somebody drafting it on a piece of paper,
Yeah, with a
to
ruler and a compass and a
yeah,
yeah.
to expressing it in a 2D format digitally, to making it into a 3D format and, designing that and then creating all of your cut sheet parts and everything that you send out to the shop that have your manufacturing instructions and everything else in it. But what happens when the design process is an iterative process where all of that lower level work that took all the time, the
Oh
creating of the
gosh.
drawings and the shapes and making sure everything fits and there aren't interferences and all these things. What if all of that is out the window and you're just talking to your agent and it's iterating on the screen in front of you what the new design of this particular thing, ought to
Right?
be. It
It's
changes everything.
crazy, man. It changes I mean, yeah, I got a marble here. "Hey, agent, I want you to make this marble. I want you to make it a piece of equipment to make this marble. I need to make 1,000,000 of them a day." And we're getting I mean, I'm not saying we're there yet, but you can tell that's where the future is going. You can scan this widget, and the equipment will be designed, drawn to perfect specification, and figured out which company it is to be able to manufacture the equipment. You can buy it, all done. They're doing the same thing. Before you know it, you're making 1,000,000 of these things. And, it's I've never heard it be called magic before, but dude, you're onto something. I mean, we're close. It's crazy.
It potentially changes a lot of things.
It changes a
And,
lot of things.
again, there's a common theme that keeps coming up that you just alluded to there, where it's like, well, if I can do this sitting at my computer, not with a team of 50 engineers or whatever, but one person can sit here and I can iterate on something that would have taken me months and months to do all of the iterating on before, and now I can do it like
A
this.
snap of a
Uh,
finger.
yeah, we just it's gonna be really fun to see how that changes things, but I think you you naturally have some incentives for things to be smaller and more flexible. And that, we started out talking about farm equipment being smaller and more flexible if it becomes automated. But, if you're automating your design process, your engineering team
Can be
might
small. Yep.
might be able to be smaller, or the startup capital required to get an idea off the ground is less. There's lots and lots of implications, and I think you are seeing some of that. I know my own team right now, my software engineers are using AI tools to write low-level code. So they're not
Yep.
even writing that anymore. They're reviewing it after it's been written, but the AI is writing that. And that might have been the most time-consuming part of the process for them in the past. Now it's not, and they can spend all of their time thinking about higher level problems that are more valuable, and all of that iterating grunt
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
code it up, break it,
Well, and
test it,
coding,
all of
yeah,
that
all
stuff
that.
goes away.
Yeah, and think of coding, how it's you used to have years of education to learn how to code. Remember when websites were first built? Like, not anybody could do it because you'd have to go to the one computer geek friend that you had that could figure out how to code and write, I don't even know what it's called. It's way above my head. But nowadays, I can create a website on AI in 15 minutes. If anybody out there is paying more than like 15 grand for a website, stop. Don't work with that company. It's not worth it because you don't need it anymore. Sorry for all of those that are out there overcharging for websites these days, because I know it still exists, but you don't need it anymore. And to your point on your software developers, we used to have to build a building for all that team. You'd have to build a building and pay a huge fee, and everyone would have to collaborate with one another. Now you could have a software developer in frickin' Guam creating work for you, that you pay when the project's completed. We Those are we talk a lot about, like, liquid workforce and this whole work from home concept. Throw all that crap away. The reality of it is you yourself, Chris, as the business owner, can go find the best software developers known to man and get these projects completed in the snap of a finger, because we're all able to connect so easily nowadays. And why wouldn't you want to take advantage of that if you're a business, right? You have no choice to. You're going to have no choice to, because everybody else is going to do it someday.
Yeah, and this is where it's hard. So, back to the manufacturing example, just because it's more tangible, I think, to think about. But
Sure.
you've invested all of this money in plant and equipment and everything else. You have your inventory. You have your engineering design team. They have their processes. It is so much easier to just tweak things around the edges than it is to go in and broom all of it
Yeah.
and start over with a clean sheet of paper. And so, you know, this is where I think smaller companies, and I've said this to a number of the members of FEMA as I've talked to them, you know, just one on one. Um, because you're smaller, you have less of that built-in institutional inertia that you have to try and figure out how to deal with. Whereas a company that's the size of a John Deere trying to make a course correction that's 180 degrees the opposite direction from where you were going is a monumental
It's
task.
next to impossible. Yep. Yep.
Even if they want to do it,
Yeah.
everything is working against them to make the change. And so, and there's lots of examples to look at for this too. And I think about the car manufacturers quite a bit because there's some really interesting things happening there right now
Yep.
where, Ford and GM just in the last couple of weeks have announced tens of billions of dollars of write-offs in their electric vehicle businesses because they can't make any money building those cars. And yet Tesla is building electric cars and is making money. Well, why is it? Um, well, there's some pretty clear answers, and it has to do with the choices that Tesla has made versus the choices that GM and Ford made to make those vehicles become a reality. And you've got to be willing to make the trade-offs if you're going to go down these roads. But that's a lot easier said than done.
It is, but Tesla is a glorified shortliner, and that's what makes the shortliner so interesting as an organization, especially if FEMA as an organization, because if you think about a lot of the history of these shortline equipment manufacturers, it's exactly what they did when they first started. They were the most inventive. They had the a way
Yep.
better idea. They didn't have the infrastructure to make it come to life like there is today, but the idea was there. And it might have been done in the guy's garage or his backyard or wherever, the one horse shop, and now it's all of a sudden Kinsey Manufacturing, whatever. There's stories left and right. There's a there's the ability to do that so much quicker and take advantage of it so much that I mean, yeah, if I'm a shortliner, boy, I'm snapping at the bit, right?
Well, you should be.
You
That
should be,
and
yeah.
that's what I think, a lot of this is about, in terms of, well, like FEMA, for example, and what FEMA stands for and what it ought to stand for going forward. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's made up of companies that came because somebody innovated
Exactly.
um and 40 years, 50 years down the road now, they've become the thing that their founders actually were bucking the system against
We're
when they came
innovating
up with
we're
their
we're innovating together. That's a super
yeah.
intelligent point. That's so true.
And
Yeah.
that that's not to be critical of anybody. It's just, the
No, of course
nature of
not.
the beast. But I think that there is a unique opportunity right now because of the change in technology in recent years, for the shortliners to truly innovate again. And I think that the linchpin to it is automation, in some form, whether it's full autonomy or whether it's partial, it doesn't matter, but that's where it's at. And if they can start to incorporate that into their equipment, everything changes. So we have some customers right now that we're working with on projects like this, where we're not trying to automate the entire machine, but we're using some very straightforward and simple methods to automate certain functions on the machine. And what we see is that as we do this, the the guys who are actually making the stuff, the OEMs, they start to rethink even what the machine is. It's like, well, okay, if I can successfully do this piece of it, I
Yeah.
may change these other 5 things to take better advantage of the automation feature that I just came up with. And, you do that a couple of times and you look at what your output is, and it doesn't look anything like
No.
what you started with.
Yeah, it's a 180 to your point, and you
Yeah.
could you have the ability to make that 180 change, yeah.
Yeah. And you can do it um without incurring some of the cost or assuming some of the risk that you would have in the past where, just clean sheet of paper starting from scratch on a particular product would have taken too long and cost too much money. And I don't think that we live in that world anymore. We're rapidly leaving that world, as we speak. And so there's a lot of these options on the table.
Well, and you are one of these guys too, just so everybody knows, you're not gonna say this about yourself, but I'll say it. You talk the talk too. Yes, you care about your own business, but you're also very heavily involved with FEMA. You lead the tech track, which is trying more or less the way I look at the tech track is we're trying to bring in more companies in FEMA that have this knowledge and this expertise and the skill set to be able to make those 180-degree pivots for that some of the mainliners just like we said, it's really, really difficult for them to do. They've already set their course. They're going, and their boat is gigantic, and moving that thing 1 degree is hard, let alone 180. But the shortliners are different. They can totally pivot, but you got to surround yourself with the right people and the right resources and the right expertise. And they're out there. That doesn't mean they have to go hire a sweet design engineer with 16 degrees for $300,000 a year. That's not the point. It's just we need to kind of unpack or rethink the feed the beast thing and stop doing that just for a little bit. The beast will be bigger and more stronger someday if you can pivot and be the most efficient manufacturer on planet Earth. I mean, Tesla's a prime example. They are doing it. They are making money and they are figuring it out. Tesla was a small little tiny company not that long ago. Not that long ago at all. And here, look at
Yep.
them now. You know, everybody wants to be Tesla, basically.
Yeah, and they're a great case study because you can look back at their history and see decisions that they made and see the impact. And so, back on this example of Ford and GM, and some of the challenges they've had with their electric vehicle production, they took an internal combustion engine vehicle that has evolved over the course of decades, and they tried to stuff an electric powertrain in that car. Um, Tesla rethought everything about how a car was made, and so one of my favorite examples is, in the frame of a Tesla car, they have like 3 stamped assemblies, and that's the whole car.
It's the whole thing. Yeah.
It's, there is no there aren't all these parts and pieces, hundreds of parts and pieces. No, there's
Weldments
3.
and clip ups and fit
Yeah.
ups. Yeah. They
There is
break all the
not
time. Yep. Yep.
right. And so, you think about the difference in handling hundreds of parts with hundreds of processes to 3 parts and 3 processes to put the frame of the car together. And, just a manufacturing standpoint, there's all kinds of benefits there, but there's also other benefits. Those cars, when they get in wrecks, are safer, and that's being demonstrated over and over and over
Yep.
again. A video popped up on my feed this morning.
Yep.
Some other
That happens.
country awarded the Model 3 with the highest safety rating they've ever given a car ever,
Yep.
and part of it is because of how they designed the thing in the first place. Well, when they designed these frame components, they had a safety target that they were trying to hit. It wasn't that hey, I've got this car frame and I'm going to go stick electric motors in there and I'm going to keep making the car the way that I was. No,
Right.
you can see the fallacy there, looking at the 2 examples. And so it's really easy to get stuck in that and it's hard to pivot away from it. But if you can muster the commitment to do it, there's a lot of benefit. And so and I people will say, well, yeah, you're not the one who has to figure
I
it
know. I hear
out,
you. No, I
you
get it.
know?
I get it.
And I totally appreciate that because the reality of doing this can be scary. But I think the alternative is, and this is you can see this as you look around, is you may be in a spot where your business doesn't exist in 10 years if you don't. And I'm not forecasting the death of General Motors or Ford here, but there's some real problems there that will be really interesting to see how they choose to deal with them because what they've done up to this point is not working. And, who knows where this takes us. If, uh, if we have robot cars that, that you can buy by the ride, that you
Right.
don't have to take care of, you don't have to drive, you don't have to service, you don't have to do any of those things. What is the market for an automobile look like in the future?
Is it even is it even a car anymore? That's called something different.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
may
beauty of what
yeah,
Tesla's doing. It's not even really, you're right, man. And I know people are laughing. Oh yeah, right. That's really gonna happen. Dude, remember when these came out? Cell phone again, folks. It's it's just good luck if your neighbor buys one and you realize, wow, look at how efficient they are. Everybody's gonna, because that's just the way the world's moving. We might not love it, and I might end on this, and I get your take on it because I appeal to this too. I love the show Landman. Do you watch Landman? Probably not.
I don't, but
No, okay.
I
Anyway,
see clips and
okay.
quotes from it all the time.
It's a good show. Season 1's better than season 2. Whatever. There's a part in it. It's all, the concept. It's all about the oil industry and drilling for oil. There was an episode out this year where like the crew from one of these riggers goes to a trade show. I can't remember. Say the trade show's in Vegas. I don't know if that's where it is, but it's this trade show and it's showing drilling for oil. All these booths are showing automated drilling machines, basically eliminating the people. And the guys, they're in dirty jeans and they got they got beards and hats on, and they're dirty, and we're hardworking people. And the dialogue was, "Well, what's that, Tommy?" And he's like, "That's what's here to replace our job someday." And I relate. I get it. I get it. You know, I understand. I understand that that may happen. But we haven't really seen those examples take place either. A lot of people think everybody's jobs are going to get gone, but go back to my previous podcast and listen to the radiologist example, and you'll understand. There's actually more radiologists today via AI, and that can model throughout any industry. But I don't know. I don't know. I get that side of it. I understand. It can be scary. It can suck. It can feel like we're getting eliminated here, but I hate to say it, but it kinda is what it is. It's here. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that everybody, if they can convince themselves that I can choose the way that I respond to this, because you can. I mean,
Sure.
you
Sure.
can choose how you're gonna respond to it. All this disruption creates opportunity, and I think that's what everybody needs to be looking for. You can look at it as, "Oh my gosh, this is the end of my world." Well, it's the end of what you did yesterday, but it's the beginning of what needs to be done tomorrow, and your job is to figure out how to apply it or how to leverage it, right? And that's where the opportunity is, and to me, that's exciting. That's way better than looking at the death of a business and, wondering how you're going to, uh, put off the inevitable a little bit longer until it doesn't matter to you anymore, and it could be somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
That that just seems like a waste of time to me.
It's way better
So
than saying in our industry, "Well, we'll just wait for the market to come back."
oh,
Okay.
yes.
Good luck. Good luck. Yeah, man, that's super intelligent, and I mean, the hair on my neck stood up when you said that. Yeah, because it is an opportunity, and it is, in my opinion, super exciting. And if you have your faith, if you have your beliefs, if you have your family, that's the stuff that matters, folks. This stuff, you know, take advantage of it. Partner with guys like Chris. He's super intelligent and he's super thought provoking and a thought leader in this. Get involved with organizations like FEMA for what they're doing in the future. Follow Chris on LinkedIn. I think you're a fantastic follow because you're thought provoking and you're a leader in this industry, man. And we're lucky to have you. I knew this would be a super fun episode. I could talk for hours, but I know we both got things to do today. So um, we'll end by just saying, number one, thank you. I'm super grateful you did this. Number two, tell people how to get in touch with you and where you're at. What's the best way to interact?
So, website, cutisag.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm not super active on there, but I do pay attention to people who reach out to me that way, as well. So, and yeah, if you're listening to this and you're trying to find a way to participate in the changes that are coming to ag, reach out because the industry needs people who are willing to think big about this stuff and have the skill sets to go with it. And the exciting thing to me is these are real tangible things. It's one thing to have a chatbot that you can, make your favorite anime video with to, share with your friends or whatever. But it's another thing entirely to rethink and change the way that food is produced and how it's handled and everything that goes with it. This is a tangible thing. And I like to bring that up because ag is thought of as being dirty, and some parts of it are, because you're in the dirt.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that it's not exciting, and it's super fulfilling. So, if you can be the reason that a farmer doesn't have 1,000 acres of ripe wheat get wiped out by a thunderstorm, that's a pretty darn good feeling.
That's
And,
awesome,
uh,
man.
and
Yeah.
I think that more people need to pay attention to what's going on here because there's opportunity around every corner. So,
I hope you guys noticed that. He just brought that full circle right there. That's how it's done, man. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man. We're going to have you back on and just kind of keep going down this. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chris Hunsaker. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Joe.
Reach driven leaders with the Germinate podcast. Sponsor our show to align your brand with actionable insights and purposeful growth. Contact us today at embosales.com/podcast. That's www.embosales.com/podcast to partner and inspire our growing audience of professionals. Hey folks, thanks for tuning into the Germinate podcast. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others in the industry. And join me next time as we continue to explore the innovations and strategies shaping the future of agriculture and business. Until then, keep growing, keep innovating, and keep germinating your success.